Right, when Mr. Tarpinian is writing on the whiteboard about his topic, let me give you a short introduction of Mr. Mark Tarpinian. He was graduated from MIT and has been working, used to be an engineer, and now is working as a writer, a photographer. Actually, he is the author of the book called Inspired Photo Poetry. So you can call him also a poet. And also he has the certificate of TESOL teacher, right? That means teaching English to speakers of other languages. Okay, so you can see he has many experiences in also in language teaching and also in the technology. He used to serve in corporate English consulting for 2.5 years in Shanghai, China. From 2005 to 2012, he continued exploring Asia and himself as well. And he has been living repeated months in China, Korea, that's where I met him, in Seoul, and Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, and of course here in Taiwan. As you can see, Mr. Tarpinian reinvented himself from technologist to teacher and now to a poet. So he is now served in a network called Joy News Networks for facilitating awareness in people around the world of our ever-present infinite power to feel and be our personal best by freely focused choice, catalyzing positive life transformation through global inspired speaking, writing, and photography, including his own Inspired Life blog. So if you're interested, you could visit his blog. It was fascinating. And later on, he will pass a questionnaire to you. So please feel free to leave your message or any feedbacks for today's presentation. And today, the topic he's going to talk about, as you can see on the whiteboard, is mind over matter, thoughts creating reality. So as you can see, it is nothing really directly related to interpretation or translating, into our professional field. But I guess the reason why I invited Mr. Tarpinian today to give us a talk is because I believe that many of us, as a translator or an interpreter, have been feeling continuously the strong anxiety when we are chased by deadlines and when we are working under high pressure. So I believe Mr. Tarpinian is going to show us how to save ourselves or relieve ourselves from those suffering and pain. Just use our inner knowledge or inner intuition to make ourselves live a better life. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mark Tarpinian.
Thank you, Hung-Shu. It's a total honor to be here with you today. And as we spend this next hour and a half or so together, I'd like you to feel, as we start, that I'm here for you. That's the reason I'm here. I'm here for Hung-Shu and all of you. So I would love to make this time very interactive. I'll speak and suggest some ideas, and as you like to offer ideas and discuss, please, anything that comes up in your mind, just let me know. I'll guide you on some discussions that we can have about this material too. I might get up from the microphone just to point at things on the whiteboard. I don't have to write too much there. But I'll just point to a couple of things. And thank you for the great introduction, Hung-Shu. I've basically pointed at three different items. The first one is my name, as Hung Shu mentioned. I'm Mark Tarpinian, and she gave a pretty detailed introduction that I had supplied. Yet, I think what I'd like to summarize with is that everything that I've done from birth till now, every step I've taken, has brought me here, right now. And if you want, in your own mind, you can imagine, because it's true, that for each of you, every step you've taken since birth till now brought you here. So somehow our separate steps brought us here together right now. And even though that's the case, that we're here right now, through our thinking, we can go anywhere. And that's the truth that I'd like to share with you today, through my own experience and through what you think now about that. So the first thing I'd like to discuss is the topic, mind over matter. Has everybody heard that phrase in English before? Mind over matter. Anybody? Has anybody heard? Hung Shu has. Anybody else heard? You have? Yeah? You have two. So we have two people. Three? 1, 2, 3 with Hung Shu. Okay. What do you, I don't know if it's good without the microphone to ask, but just if you'd like, how do you feel, what do you think that means to you? There's no right or wrong. Sure, please, come on. What does it mean, mind over matter?
I don't know the origin of the phrase, but for me, I think it totally makes sense because I believe that mind creates matter.
Okay.
That everything that we see or are surrounded is created by the mind.
Okay.
Like how we feel is how we actually perceive our world, and that's how I explain it.
That's beautifully explained, I think. So I feel the same way about that phrase. I don't know who first originated the phrase either, yet I believe in the truth. So it's about our mind, our thoughts, as the second part says, creating our reality. Thoughts creating our reality. So matter, as your colleague said, matter is the stuff in our world. It's the things, it's these cups and pens and board, it's the situations, like the situation where we're here today. And actually what I've come to know is that my thinking creates this entirely. We each think separately, yet somehow our thinking aligned to be here right now, to be wearing these clothes, to be choosing to be here at this university and choosing your studies in translation and interpretation. Your mind, possibly mixed with thoughts from other people, created that. So why? Why is that important to focus on? Mind over matter, our thoughts create our reality. I'd like to pose an answer to that with another question. Why do we do what we do? You can just sit with that for a minute. Why do we do what we do? It sounds like a simple question, almost too basic, but it could be anything. Why do we do what we do? Any thoughts? Somebody wants to volunteer? No right or wrong. Anything you feel is perfect. Why do we do what we do?
Because we follow our heart. That's what we think is right to do.
Okay. We follow our heart. That's also beautiful. We'll be talking a lot more about that specifically, suggesting that. That's one way, and that's one thing. Anybody else have a thought? Why do we do what we do? Please.
Because we set our mind to we have what we want to do, and we just like automatically it's a hint. So we're doing things to achieve our goal.
Okay. So if I can rephrase that, following whatever programs are in our mind. Some of the programs may be related to our goals, and we follow that. Okay, so if I can go back to both of your comments and go just a little deeper. So let's say that's great, follow your heart, but still, why do I follow my heart? Why?
Because I think this is the right thing to do. My instinct.
Okay, me too. And then if I ask further, if I ask myself and I ask you and we share ideas, so why do I follow my instinct?
Because it's a natural thing to do. It's something that you feel spontaneously, based upon your experiences and
Okay.
knowledge,
Okay.
whatever you acquired before, and then become something instinct.
Okay, and then if I do that, if I follow my spontaneous feeling, why do I follow that?
Because the experience tells you that you will do the right thing.
You do the right, and why do I want to do the right thing?
That makes you feel better.
Makes you feel better. Thank you. You couldn't have picked the more perfect phrase that, and I'm sort of skipping ahead of myself. I was going to follow that same path with your colleague's comment about following programs. But for the sake of time, I think I'll suggest that I can cut right to the point, which is actually we really do everything we do to feel better. Every single thing.
I have a question.
Please.
But sometimes we do things because, not just because for our own good. Sometimes we do that for others. To be kind to others, to your family, even though sometimes you don't want to do that, but you feel that you are obligated to do that. As a mother, your children are hungry, so it's time for you to show up and do the cooking. Sometimes, even when you're tired and lazy, but still you feel the obligation, so you still do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking, as you asked that, as you mentioned that point, I was thinking about your family when you said that. It's appropriate. So this is perfect too, because this is leading me down another path that I was hoping we'd get to quickly. So if we can follow that, Hongshu, at first it feels like we're doing something that is purely for someone else, which is true, yet what if we didn't do that? How would you feel?
Guilty.
Okay, so...
I feel guilty. I feel I'm not a very responsible mother.
Okay, so then, besides doing it for somebody else, then how's the feeling when you do it?
Well, it's kind of complex. I mean, a part you feel, okay, I'm tired, but I have to do this. I really hope I could be rich enough to have a maid,
Sure.
to cook for me, okay, or any helpers. But of course, when I saw them, eating the dinner and happily, okay, I feel kind of satisfied and kind of glad that I did it.
Okay.
But
Okay.
in a sense of sacrifice.
Sure.
Myself.
Sure. So it's those mixed emotions that you mentioned. Yet if you have to choose between not doing it and feeling guilty, or that mixture of emotions you mentioned, which one feels better?
You mean feeling guilty or not doing this?
Feeling guilty or doing it and feeling that mixture of sacrifice and emotion, which one feels better?
I don't know. It's hard to decide.
It's hard to decide.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer that still deep down, that even if it's to avoid pain, it's actually the same thing. It's to feel better. We can either feel better by following our heart that feels great. You're following your heart too in that process. Yet it's all to feel better. Some people for psychology talk about motivation for our action being two things: to gain pleasure and avoid pain. I believe we can wrap those into one thing, which is feeling better. Feeling better. So what, right? We have this discussion about thinking, feeling better. if we agree inside each of ourselves that everything we do is actually to feel better, then we can empower ourselves to feel better right now. There are ways to do that, and it's done with our thinking. We feel with our heart, and we think with our mind, and we can also think with our whole body. Sometimes they don't agree. So that's why your colleague, the gentleman who said following the heart, is something that I've started to do entirely. So every decision I make from here. And if this mind doesn't agree, I choose this, and this follows. It's a different way than I used to think for many years. Schooled in engineering, logical thinking, research everything, weigh the pros and cons, almost exhaustively. Then make your decision. Actually, when I follow my heart and the feeling, the decision is simpler, elegant, quick, and brings more creative solution than just my mind can bring. Our minds are actually much more limited than our heart in solving things. So the whole reason that I was excited to speak to you about this topic of our thoughts creating our reality is that for your translation and interpretation and for everything in your life, you can choose thoughts that make you happier, put you at ease. There are many ways to do that if you believe that you can control your thoughts. And I don't know how each of you feels right now. That took me a little while to believe. I used to think that some of the things in my life that were good that I created, great, I created those. The things that I didn't like so much, that's life. That's part of life. Actually, for me now, I believe that's not the truth. That, as your colleague mentioned, every single thing in our life, to the last detail, we create because of our thoughts. Either we are aware or it's deeper subconscious and we may not be aware. Yet if I look at it, I feel now, and I've felt recently, so passionate about this sharing this knowing that our thoughts do create our reality, that after about 20 years of semiconductor industry work in Silicon Valley, California, and then moving to Shanghai and teaching business English for 2.5 years, and doing some writing, as Hung Shu mentioned, publishing a book on photo poetry about positive thinking, and writing a blog about that, sharing this passion. I wanted to reach masses of people throughout the world to share this. So this Joy News network that you see now is a startup company. It's a new social network that if you Google now, you won't see on the internet. Yeah, we've registered a company together. We've created a logo that's very powerful in transmitting joy. We've registered the logo. I just came back last week from Dubai. I was in Dubai speaking about this exact topic to a yoga music festival in Dubai. A friend organized, and she was so passionate about this message that she said, come, make this your first public speaking event in Dubai. And I think as we spend a little more time here today, the pieces will come together. So the most important thing that I feel is the pieces come together so you can feel this in your own life. And when we leave each other today, you have something practical you can take away from and think about, possibly every day as a seed that grows, starting with how you might use it for your interpretation and translation, but then in everything in your life. So what does everything mean? If I go back to this topic, that what I think about creates my reality, I can go back to a truth that I believe, which is everything that I think and feel is responsible for all aspects of my life. Responsible in terms of the quality and the results of everything in my life. And we could break that into areas. What's everything? The most important thing it's responsible for is my mental, emotional well-being. If we do everything we do to feel better, then we do everything to feel better. We really want, if we say I want a goal, every goal that I could speak about is I want it because my desire is to feel better. So if that's the top goal of the pyramid for everything, what if we can find a way to just cut right to the feeling better? What if I, instead of worrying and focusing so much on the details of the goal, I focus inside on my feelings? The goal's out here, but my feeling and my thoughts are here. And I can control my thoughts. I can 100% control my thoughts. I can't choose everything going through my mind at one time. Yet when I become aware of my thoughts and I want to choose better thoughts, I can form new habit of thinking. It takes practice, it takes self-work, but it's guiding our life from the inside out instead of looking for things outside that I react to. Whatever happens out here, I change my thoughts, I react to. And when we're able to do that, then we're empowered inside, we're 100% free. We're free then to choose how we respond instead of react. Now I can stop and breathe and I can respond. So besides my mental, emotional well-being, that's the thing we all want to do for any goal, it also, fortunately, controls the financial and material abundance in our life. So the money we earn, the things we have in our life. It affects my physical vitality, my energy level and fitness, and it affects the quality of all my relationships. All of those aspects are important to your interpretation and translation. Your mental, emotional well-being, the better that is, the more tuned in to your client you're going to be as you're working together. The greater the financial reward is that you can gain because you feel good inside. The greater your physical vitality and fitness, which is going to let you perform better and feel good every day. The higher the quality of your relationships. As you feel happier, you're going to connect with your clients more deeply. So the thinking really is everything. There's a phrase from a gentleman in the U.S. that says that we become what we think about most of the time. So whatever our thoughts are that repeat most of the time, that's what we become in our life. And I suggest to you, if you want to think about this and believe it and practice it, that it can completely transform your life. And I can give you a very small example. It'll seem like a small situation from my own life recently. And then we can break out into groups and speak about this a little more in your own lives to make it practical. And this small situation can be translated into bigger situations, whatever the goal size is that you have. So here's an example from last week flying to Dubai about my own thinking and how I play with that. When I boarded the plane, I flew from Taipei to Guangzhou, and then I connect from Guangzhou to Dubai. So my flight from Guangzhou to Dubai was the longer leg, about 9 hours. And now, since I've lived in Asia 7 years and I travel back and forth to San Francisco, that's easy for me. Yet, when I sat down in my aisle seat in the plane, in the middle seat next to me was a gentleman who, before we took off, was just fidgeting around and nervous and just couldn't stop moving. And I felt a lot of nervous energy. So the first thoughts that go through my mind, and this is interesting because we talk about control. We don't control the flow of every thought. We control the response to the thoughts. That we can. So the first thought is, oh my God, 9 hours? I'm going to be sitting next to this guy who's fidgeting around, and maybe I can find another seat. So these thoughts start to occur, and we'll talk about this more together, about different ways to monitor your thought and then choose differently. But I knew that thinking from my own choice and conditioning, that my thoughts create my reality, I knew that thinking wasn't going to serve me at all. So I have my own way to say stop. I say cancel, cancel to myself in my brain. Cancel, cancel. Okay? I'm going to choose a better thought. I can choose. If I stop and I see, I'm aware that I'm thinking a negative thought, I can stop and choose. Okay, there's so many things we can choose for thoughts. Choosing anything that feels a little better, here we are back to the feeling better. Feel better now. It starts me on a different direction. The thoughts about, oh, he's fidgeting around 9 hours, can I find another seat? There's nothing good that's going to come out of that, really, in my feeling, even if I find another seat. So my thought I chose was, well, really, I don't know this gentleman's situation. And I haven't taken the time to reach out and say hello. I hadn't. I just started thinking these thoughts and forming these opinions. It's a story I make up in my mind. So all I did was simply choose, I'm going to reach out. So I reach over, and I go over and shake his hand, and I go, hi, my name's Mark. Nice to meet you. Why are you going to Dubai? And I get chills talking about this to you, because just this simple situation. He started to smile. He started to tell this story about he's taking a 2-year assignment from the Philippines, which is his home, to do refrigeration technician work in Dubai. He's kind of excited. He's a little bit nervous about it. Yet his energy immediately calmed down. I'm not saying we have the power to change somebody else's thoughts and energy. We can influence it, though, with how we transmit. And even if I said something and it didn't stop his fidgeting, guess what? I already decided that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is feeling better now, me feeling better. And by reaching out, I knew I was going to feel better. I didn't know what the outcome. I don't know what the outcome is. I never know. We never know. We think we know, but we actually don't know. And once his energy calmed down, we didn't chat often, yet if we'd sleep, then they'd bring the meal along. I could have a glass of red wine, he had his Coke, and I go, cheers, to your new assignment in Dubai. And it was beautiful. By the time we left, just could wish him well again. That's a simple situation of choosing different thoughts and then having a totally different outcome. Otherwise, I could have left myself feeling frustrated. We can get into self-pity. Why did I end up in the seat? So simple choices of thoughts create totally different outcomes. And we don't have to know what the outcome is as long as we feel better. And some people may argue, oh, if I don't get the result I want, why does it matter? Because the reason we want the result is to feel better. So if I feel better, it doesn't matter if I get that result or not. It actually doesn't matter because I feel great. And when I feel great, maybe the result I thought I wanted, there's a better result. I can't see that unless I just feel good. If I just focus on that result only that I thought about, it's a narrow focus. If I say, I see it, that's what I want, but it doesn't matter, I feel good, then I open up to all the other possibilities for a better situation to come in. The reason I'm sitting here speaking to you today, Angshu and I had coffee before I went to Dubai, and it was a nice reunion since we met in Seoul, Korea 2 years ago, with her husband and children staying at the same guest house. And she we were just celebrating life, talking about so many things, and she said, what are you doing, Mark? And I mentioned this Joiners Network, social network. And because of those good feeling thoughts between the two of us, she came up with the idea, why don't you come speak to the graduate school students, all of you. And that just came out. I had no idea before we had coffee that that might be an outcome. No idea. Yet something beautiful comes along because we have a good feeling, and in that good feeling we can create. So you're the experts for translation and interpretation. I've done some language training, so you know best. Yet, my living in Asia for 7 years, I have a feeling that if you're feeling your absolute best, you can transmit and receive better than you could ever transmit and receive if you were feeling less than that. So it's only going to help, even if you feel great and something comes up for a situation and you don't understand. Right? And then that certainly, I mean, we can have some fun with what kinds of thoughts for interpretation and translation can you keep in your mind and your heart to help that. I can think of some things now, like right away I think of, it's not your fault, right? Actually, communication's a two-way street. Perhaps the client wasn't clear. So if I know it's not my fault, then I won't lay that guilty feeling on myself. I don't have to carry that around in any situation. And if I know it's not my fault, maybe I'm very comfortable to ask again, could you repeat that? Instead of worrying, oh, I didn't understand. And there are so many thoughts that you can share with each other, and that's something in our discussion group we can do together. What kinds of thoughts for interpretation and translation could you carry around with you to feel better in most all situations? So my idea was to break out into groups and discuss that. I don't know with the microphones how it's best to do.
They could each of them could use the microphone in front of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And just sit together and kind of go around.
Yeah.
Is that the best? Would you like to do that? Is it fun? And if somebody doesn't, if you don't have an idea and you want to pass, please don't worry. Just say pass. There's no right or wrong. You don't have to think of the best answer. It's just about sharing together what's going to help each other. We'll start with translation and interpretation because that's your focus in your study. And we can expand this to all those elements in your life that we talked about. The emotional and mental well-being, the financial and material abundance, the physical vitality and fitness, and the quality of relationships. We can expand to all of that. Let's just take the subject of translation and interpretation. So what kind of good feeling thoughts could you carry with you if you have an assignment to do translation or interpretation? And maybe we can start around the room this way. Anything for your own situation. And before we start, these are thoughts that if you choose them, if you like to repeat them in your mind, then they form that new thought habit. They get stronger. We become what we think about most of the time. So it's the repetition, it's the thought pattern. So we can start here. And I don't know who is doing mostly translation or mostly interpretation. You will know. But for either situation, what kinds of things could you carry with you for an assignment that would serve you for good feeling?